Pac-Man was gaming's first true mascot. Before Mario stomped his first Goomba or Sonic dashed through his first loop, Pac-Man was already dodging ghosts with endless hunger. What began as a simple arcade game in 1980 became a global icon and one of the most successful franchises in gaming history.
Good boy.
Somebody annihilate this stupid thing!
This is the evolution of Pac-Man. In 1980, arcades were full of space-themed shooting games. Titles like Space Invaders, Asteroids, and Galaxian were very popular, but all shared a similar gameplay style. Pac-Man was created to stand out. Its 24-year-old designer, Toru Iwatani, wanted a game that was colorful, non-violent, and welcoming to everyone, especially women. As he put it, when you think about things women like, you think about fashion, or fortune-telling, or food, or dating boyfriends. So I decided to theme the game around eating. Whether you agree with him or not, the concept made for a great game. Part of Toru's inspiration came while eating a slice of pizza. The missing slice left a shape that looked like it was ready to eat. As for the character's name, the original name, Pac-Man, is a play on the Japanese phrase paku paku tabaru, meaning to chomp or to gobble up. For the design, Toru looked at Japanese symbols called kanji. One kanji, kuchi, means mouth. Another kanji, tabaru, means to eat. Both look like a face with an open mouth, which helped inspire Pac-Man's round shape. Once the character was ready, Toru focused on the game itself. He wanted something easy to learn, built around eating. But eating alone would get boring, so the game needed enemies and a way to score points. He chose ghosts as enemies. Toru had used ghosts before in a 1979 game called Cutie Q and felt they would fit Pac-Man well. To make them cute, or kawaii, he gave them bright colors and big eyes. The idea for power-ups, called Power Pellets, came from Popeye, who gained strength after eating spinach. Bonus items were added too, inspired by slot machines, like cherries, oranges, and bells. Fun fact, the ghosts have different names depending on the region. In Japan, their original names described how each ghost behaves. Outside Japan, these were roughly translated to Shadow, Speedy, Bashful, and Pokey. At the same time, the ghosts became best known by their nicknames Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. After 1 year and 5 months of development, Pac-Man was ready to launch in Tokyo on May 22, 1980. Back then, it had a different name, Pac-Man. It saw moderate success at first, but once it was shown to American investors, everything changed. What started as a small arcade game was about to become a worldwide phenomenon. Namco America asked for a name change, worried vandals would turn the P in Pac-Man into an F. The head of Namco agreed and renamed it Pac-Man, closer to the original title, Pac-Man. Distribution rights were first offered to Atari, but they refused, a decision that would later be seen as a huge mistake. Midway Manufacturing stepped in instead. Pac-Man reached American arcades in October 1980. It started quietly, but once word spread, the game exploded in popularity, and players could not get enough. Besides introducing Power Pellets as the first true power-up in video games, Pac-Man was also one of the first games to feature animated cutscenes in between levels, adding small story moments to the action. The simple but addictive gameplay ate quarters fast. In its first year, over 100,000 Pac-Man cabinets were installed across the US and Japan, with more than 250 million games played every week. In 1981, it won Game of the Year, and Pac-Man became gaming's first true mascot. Merchandise soon appeared everywhere, from books and t-shirts to lunchboxes and bumper stickers. Fun fact, Pac-Man's famous sound effects were added near the end. When asked how the game should sound, Toru Iwatani simply ate fruit out loud, making strange chewing noises. Realizing they had missed out, Atari rushed to bring Pac-Man to the Atari 2600. It sold over 8 million copies and was a huge commercial success. But the port was widely criticized and is often called one of the worst arcade-to-home conversions ever. Strange choices like flickering ghosts made it feel far from the arcade original. It even fueled the 1983 video game crash because it was so bad. Later releases on the Atari 5200 and many other systems finally brought a better Pac-Man experience into living rooms around the world. 1982 was a wild year for Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man was released as a sequel. Initially, it was titled Crazy Otto, but after showing the project to Midway and Namco, who were already looking for a sequel, it was approved and renamed Miss Pac-Man. She was introduced as Pac-Man's wife. The reason she was not called Mrs. Pac-Man was simple. Miss was easier to say. The gameplay stayed close to the original, but added more variety. There were new maze colors, extra warp tunnels, new animations, and small changes like fresh sound effects and music. Many players felt Miss Pac-Man was even better than the original. The Atari 2600 version proved it by winning Video Game of the Year in 1983. Fun fact: in Miss Pac-Man, the orange ghost was renamed from Clyde to Sue. In later games, her color was changed to purple, so the two would not be confused. Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man were brought together again in pinball form when Bally Midway released a machine with the same name. It played like a normal pinball game, but at the center was a Pac-Maze. The goal was to fill a 5x5 grid while avoiding the ghost. Also in 1982, Super Pac-Man was released as Namco's powered-up twist on the original. Instead of pellets, players moved through maze-like rooms filled with different food items. Keys unlocked doors to new sections of the maze, and eating power pellets turned Pac-Man into Super Pac-Man, making him briefly invincible and able to pass through doors without unlocking them. The game added more strategy, with a focus on speed, timing, and route planning, making it a fast and energetic evolution of the original gameplay. Iwatani was not a fan of how large Pac-Man became in his super form, but the game still performed well in arcades and became the top-earning arcade game of May 1983. Console versions were released in Japan, and years later, Pac-Man also appeared on the Game Boy Color. And finally, in 1982, Baby Pac-Man was launched. In mixed maze gameplay with pinball, players began by eating dots in a maze, but entering one of two chutes paused the maze and switched play to a real pinball table below the screen. When the ball was lost, the maze continued. Around 7,000 Baby Pac-Man machines were produced. Pac-Man Plus, released in 1983, added unpredictable twists meant to challenge skilled players. Power pellets could make ghosts invisible, change their colors, or shorten the time they could be eaten. Drinking a can of Coca-Cola could even turn Pac-Man invisible, which helped avoid ghosts, but also made it harder to see yourself. The game was part of Midway's attempt to extend Pac-Man's success without Namco's direct involvement. This later caused problems between the two companies. In the end, the risks did not pay off. Pac-Man Plus failed to catch on and was remembered more as an odd experiment than a true successor to the original. That same year, Pac-Man gained a new partner named Miru. Instead of eating pellets, Pac-Man flipped cards around the maze to unlock fruit and power-ups. Miru then moved around collecting those items to earn points. But Miru was not always helpful. If Miru reached the ghost pen before Pac-Man, the points were lost, making Miru more annoying than useful at times. Pac-Man could also pick up special items that let him stun ghosts with fire, ice, or sound, replacing the classic power pellets. Pac Pal was released only in Japan and saw limited arcade release, leading to its low sales and making it one of the rarer Pac-Man games. Professor Pac-Man is the moment when experimental spin-offs went a bit too far from the maze. It was a quiz game instead of an action game, with timed visual questions like matching images or spotting differences. It failed miserably with only about 400 cabinets made. Junior Pac-Man debuted in 1983. It stayed close to the original, but the maze scrolled horizontally, and the usual warp tunnels were removed. Fun fact, in its first year, Pac-Man ate up $1 billion in quarters. Just 1 year later, in 1982, it swallowed $6 billion. That is more than people spent in Las Vegas casinos and U.S. movie theaters combined that year. Pac-Land marked a huge change for Pac-Man. The mazes were gone, replaced by a side-scrolling platform game. Pac-Man now ran and jumped through towns, deserts, and forests, while guiding a lost fairy home. He even had arms and legs, inspired by the Hanna-Barbera cartoon series. Pac-Land ranked among the top 5 highest-grossing arcade games in 1985 and was a commercial success when later ported to home consoles like the Famicom and Atari Lynx. Fun fact, Even though the gameplay of Pac-Land was simple, it played an important role by influencing later side-scrollers like Alex Kidd, Wonder Boy, and even Super Mario Bros. In 1987, Pac-Mania hit the arcades. This was Namco's 3D-styled reinvention of classic Pac-Man. It featured colorful themed mazes like Block Town, Pac-Man's Park, and Jungly Steps, each with bright visuals and remixed music. 2 new ghosts, Funky and Spunky, were also added. The biggest change was jumping. Pac-Man could hop over ghosts, except for Spunky. This added a fresh layer of strategy and made the game feel faster and more intense. Pac-Mania performed well in arcades and later received many ports, including the NES in 1990 and Sega Genesis in 1991. The longest gap between Pac-Man games was 6 years, ending with Pac-Attack in 1993. Also known as Pac-Panic, it was a falling tile puzzle game for the SNES. It played like a Pac-Man version of Tetris. Reviews were mixed, but the game later released on systems like the Genesis, Game Gear, and Game Boy. In 1995, Pac-Man starred in Pac-In-Time, a side-scrolling platformer based on the 1993 game Fury of the Furries. Players solved puzzle-filled levels, avoided traps, climbed terrain, and collected pellets to open each exit. Pac-Man could use tools like ropes, hammers, fireballs, and even swim gear. It was not a major hit, but it earned a small cult following for its creative levels and unique tone. Pac-Man VR was a bold experiment that put players inside the maze in first person. It had limited distribution, but it was one of the first VR adaptations of any game franchise. Fun fact, players had to listen closely to ghost sounds to know where they were coming from and plan their path, which was very advanced for its time. Released in 1999, Pac-Man World brought Pac-Man into full 3D on the PlayStation and marked his return as a major mascot after years of experiments. With his family kidnapped by ghosts, Pac-Man traveled through themed worlds like pirate coves, factories, ruins, and space bases to save them. The game mixed classic platforming with Pac-Man elements such as pellet trails, power pellets, and maze-style bonus stages. It became one of Pac-Man's most successful 3D games and led to 2 sequels. Released in 2002, Pac-Man World 2 became a fan favorite and introduced Spooky, one of the series' most well-known villains. The game stood out for its underwater stages and sliding sections, which added variety but were seen by some as too hard for a Pac-Man game. It was released on PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox, and PC, and sold well, with over 1 million copies on PS2 alone. In 2002, Pac-Man got his own party game, inspired by Mario Party. Pac-Man Fever focused on multiplayer minigames and was released on PlayStation 2 and GameCube. The game featured 6 playable characters, including Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, and guests from other Namco series like Tekken, Soul Calibur, and Ridge Racer. Its title referenced the 1981 hit song Pac-Man Fever. Despite the idea, the game fell flat with a terrible score of 47. In 2006, Pac-Man joined the kart racing trend with Pac-Man World Rally. The game featured races against classic Namco characters like Figar, Mappy, Dr. Driller, Pac-Man's family, and the famous Ghosts. Players could race in a solo Grand Prix or multiplayer on PS2 and PC. The game lacked polish compared to other kart racers and earned a low score of 57. In 2021, Screen Rant even listed it among the worst racing games of all time. Fun fact, while Mario may dominate party and racing games, Pac-Man holds a Guinness World Record as the most recognizable video game character. In a 2008 poll, 94% of Americans recognized him. In 2007, Toru Iwatani returned to co-design Pac-Man Championship Edition for the Xbox 360. It was a love letter to the arcade era, bringing classic Pac-Man back in a fresh, modern way. The game kept the core maze gameplay but added time-based scoring, changing mazes, and faster, updated visuals. It was praised by critics, earning a score of 83, and was later released on iOS, Android, and the PSP. In 2010, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX expanded on the original and was also released on PlayStation 3. It added new ideas like sleeping ghosts and slow-motion dodges. DX became the highest-rated Pac-Man game ever, earning an impressive 93 on Metacritic. Fun fact, that same year, Google celebrated Pac-Man's 30th anniversary with a playable doodle. It was played by over 1 billion people, meaning nearly 15% of the world tried Pac-Man in their browser. Before Fortnite and PUBG made Battle Royale popular, Pac-Man already did it. In 2011, Namco Bandai released Pac-Man Battle Royale for Pac-Man's 30th birthday. Instead of large-scale battles, it supported up to 4 players in the same maze, each controlling a different colored Pac-Man. Power pellets did not just let you eat ghosts, but other players too, turning the classic maze into a fast, chaotic fight. The game launched in arcades and later reached home consoles through Pac-Man collections. In 2013, Pac-Man returned for a younger audience with Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. Based on the cartoon series, the game mixed classic Pac-Man with platforming, simple combat moves, and even some vehicle sections. It looked colorful and stayed true to the show, but the gameplay felt repetitive and too easy. The sequel scored slightly better, but it was still not impressive. Pac-Man also appeared in the 2015 movie Pixels, this time as a giant world-ending enemy. The movie was poorly received, scoring 5.6 on IMDb and just 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. Pac-Man Museum collected classic and modern Pac-Man games into one package for PC and consoles. It featured fan favorites like the original Pac-Man, Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, and Championship Edition. Reception was mixed. Players enjoyed the nostalgia, but critics felt it lacked extra features, giving it a score of 64. Pac-Man 256 was an endless arcade game inspired by the famous level 256 glitch from the original Pac-Man. The maze slowly scrolled upward, as if the glitch itself were chasing you, creating constant pressure. Toru Iwatani said he found it quite intense without much space to take breathers. It was well received, scoring 79 on consoles. Fun fact, in 1999, Billy Mitchell claimed to be the first person to achieve a perfect score of 3,333,360 on the original Pac-Man. This required eating every dot, power pill, ghost, and bonus on every level without losing a single life. He was later accused of cheating, but the same score was achieved by David Race in 2013. In 2021, Pac-Man jumped into the Battle Royale trend with Pac-Man 99, a chaotic multiplayer game exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online. It dropped 99 players into connected mazes, all playing at the same time. The result was fast, tense, and surprisingly addictive, turning classic Pac-Man into a fun battle royale twist. Despite a decent score of 76, the game was shut down in October 2023. Released in 2022 on PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC, Pac-Man Museum Plus celebrated over 40 years of Pac-Man. It includes 14 classic and modern games, from the original Pac-Man to Championship Edition and Pac-Man 256. Players explore a customizable virtual arcade, unlock items through missions, and compete on online leaderboards. Despite being praised for its quality, reviews were mixed. Fun fact, Pac-Man is one of the highest-grossing media franchises ever. The games alone have made over $15 billion. Released in 2022, Pac-Man World Re-Pac is a full remake of the 1999 PlayStation game Pac-Man World, rebuilt for modern consoles and PC. It added HD visuals, smoother controls, and a better camera, while keeping the 3D platforming and maze-style stages. Some levels, bosses, and abilities were changed or added. At launch, the original staff credits were missing, which upset fans and the original designer Scott Rogers. A later update restored the credits, and paid DLC added a jukebox so players could listen to the game's music. Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac followed in 2025. Rebuilding its larger worlds with a stronger focus on combat platforming while changing some stages, bosses, and abilities. Fan-favorite mechanics like the butt bounce and rev roll were preserved, while new moves like the flip kick, flutter jump, and pac-dot throw were carried over from the previous Re-Pac game. Overall, both Re-Pac remakes were received well, blending nostalgia with fresh gameplay for a new audience. 45 years after his debut, Pac-Man showed a darker side in 2025 with Shadow Labyrinth, released on PS5. Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The game reimagines the franchise as a 2D action platformer. It follows a swordsman alongside a familiar yellow orb named Puck. Some praised its bold sci-fi direction, while others felt it strayed too far from Pac-Man's arcade roots. So far, reviews have been mixed, with a score of 68. Pac-Man's evolution is just one story. Every week, we create new evolutions about games, consoles, and more. Subscribe for more evolutions.